Life in Russia today is really complicated. The streets are bustling with people, but there's an underlying tension that you can almost feel in the air. It's a country grappling with a myriad of challenges, both seen and unseen. The daily hustle and bustle continue, but there's a shadow that looms over everyday life, affecting everyone in different ways. The war in Ukraine affects everything. It's not just a distant conflict, it's something that permeates every aspect of life here. From the headlines that scream from every newsstand to the hushed conversations on the streets, the war is a constant presence. People are always talking about it, trying to make sense of the latest developments and what they mean for their future. Things like groceries and gas are more expensive because of sanctions. It's tough on everyone. The cost of living has skyrocketed, making it difficult for families to make ends meet. At the market, you can see the frustration on people's faces as they try to stretch their rubles further. At gas stations, the rising prices are a constant reminder of the economic strain. Sanctions have hit hard, and the ripple effects are felt in every household. The government says one thing, but people see something different. Official statements often paint a rosy picture, but the reality on the ground tells a different story. Protests have become more common as people voice their discontent and demand change. There's a growing sense of disillusionment and a feeling that the government is out of touch with the struggles of everyday citizens. The war isn't far away, it's a daily reality. Families have people fighting. The conflict has touched nearly every family, with many having loved ones on the front lines. The emotional toll is immense, as families say tearful goodbyes at train stations, not knowing if they'll see their loved ones again. The war is not just a news story, it's a personal and painful reality for many. Many worry about their loved ones. The anxiety is palpable, as people constantly check their phones for updates and pray for the safety of their family members. Photos of loved ones are cherished, and every piece of news is scrutinized for any hint of hope or despair. The uncertainty is a heavy burden, and it weighs on everyone. Nobody knows what the future holds, and that's scary. Everyone feels this weight. The uncertainty of the future is a constant source of anxiety. People go about their daily lives, but there's a sense of foreboding that hangs over everything. In parks and public spaces, you can see the worry etched on people's faces as they contemplate what lies ahead. The fear of the unknown is a shared experience, uniting people in their collective unease. But even with all this, life goes on. Despite the challenges, people find ways to carry on. The markets are still bustling and daily routines continue. There's a resilience in the face of adversity, a determination to keep moving forward no matter what. Life may be difficult, but it doesn't stop. People adapt and find ways to cope with the new normal. People are adjusting to the new economy. Small businesses are finding innovative ways to survive, and street vendors continue to ply their trade. The economic landscape may have changed, but the entrepreneurial spirit remains strong. People are resourceful, finding new opportunities and adapting to the shifting circumstances. It's a testament to their resilience and ingenuity. They find ways to deal with the sadness of war. Community support groups have sprung up, offering a sense of solidarity and comfort. War memorials are visited more frequently, as people seek to honor those who have been lost and find solace in shared grief. The sadness is ever present, but so is the strength of community. People come together to support one another, finding ways to cope with the emotional toll of the conflict. Their traditions and culture give them comfort and strength. Russians are tough. Cultural festivals and traditional performances provide a sense of continuity and normalcy. They are a reminder of the rich heritage and enduring spirit of the Russian people. In times of crisis, these traditions offer a source of comfort and a way to stay connected to their roots. The resilience of the Russian people is evident in their ability to find strength in their culture. Their story is one of hardship, but also one of strength. The daily grind continues with workers in factories and farmers in fields. It's a story of perseverance, of people who keep going despite the odds. The challenges are many, but so is the determination to overcome them. The Russian spirit is one of resilience, and it shines through in the face of adversity. It's a story of propaganda, but also of people pushing back. The official narrative is often at odds with the reality on the ground, and people are increasingly questioning what they're told. Protests and political discussions are becoming more common as people seek to assert their voices and demand change. It's a complex and dynamic situation with a growing awareness and activism among the populace. It's about a country facing a tough present and an unknown future. The landscape is as uncertain as the weather, with storm clouds on the horizon. People look towards the future with a mix of hope and fear, unsure of what lies ahead. It's a time of great challenge, but also of potential change. The story of Russia today is one of resilience, uncertainty, and the enduring human spirit. For many Russians, daily life looks normal. Streets are busy, stores are open, the hustle and bustle of everyday life continues unabated. People are seen chatting, laughing, and going about their routines as if nothing has changed. The markets are filled with fresh produce, and the aroma of freshly baked bread wafts through the air. Children play in parks, and the elderly sit on benches reminiscing about the past. It's a scene of normalcy, a facade that hides the underlying tension. People go to work and school. The morning rush hour is filled with commuters, students with backpacks, and professionals in suits. The metro stations are crowded, and the streets are filled with the honking of cars. Life seems to be moving forward, with everyone playing their part in the daily grind. Schools are bustling with the energy of young minds eager to learn, and offices are filled with the hum of productivity. It's a picture of a society functioning as it should, but there's an undercurrent of unease. But underneath, the war is always there. It's a silent presence that lingers in the background, a shadow that looms over the daily activities. War memorials stand as stark reminders of the past and the present. Subtle symbols of conflict are scattered throughout the cities, from posters to graffiti. People walk past these symbols, often with a somber expression, aware but choosing to ignore. The weight of the war is felt, even if it's not always acknowledged. It's a heavy burden that everyone carries, whether they realize it or not. It's like two different worlds, war and peace. On one hand, there are the peaceful streets of Russian cities where life goes on as usual. On the other hand, there are the war zones in Ukraine, filled with destruction and chaos. The contrast is stark and jarring. Soldiers are seen in the war zones, fighting and risking their lives, while back home people are shopping, dining, and enjoying their leisure time. It's a surreal juxtaposition, a split reality that is hard to reconcile. The two worlds exist simultaneously, yet they feel worlds apart. The government talks about winning and heroes. Political speeches are filled with rhetoric about bravery, sacrifice, and victory. Patriotic rallies are held, with flags waving and anthems playing. The narrative is one of strength and resilience, of a nation standing tall in the face of adversity. The government paints a picture of heroism, of a just cause worth fighting for. It's a message designed to inspire and rally the people, to keep their spirits high. But behind the speeches and the rallies there are questions and doubts that linger. TV makes it seem like the war isn't so bad. News broadcasts are carefully curated, showing only what the government wants the people to see. The images are controlled, the narrative is managed. Families sit in their living rooms watching the news, believing what they are told. The reality of the war is sanitized. The horrors are downplayed. It's a form of propaganda, a way to keep the population calm and supportive. The true cost of the war is hidden, the suffering is masked. It's a distorted reality, a version of the truth that is far from complete. They don't show the real cost, the people who are hurt. It's all very strange. The hospitals are filled with the injured, the ones who have paid the price of the conflict. But these images are rarely shown. The streets may look normal, but there is an undercurrent of pain and loss. Families mourn in private, their grief hidden from the public eye. The true cost of the war is measured in human lives, in the suffering of those who are left behind. It's a reality that is hard to face, a truth that is often ignored. The disconnect between what is shown and what is real is profound. Soldiers are fighting and dying far away, but in cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg, it can feel like nothing is happening. The war is a distant reality, something that happens elsewhere. In the cities, life goes on. People relax in cafes, stroll through parks, and enjoy the cultural offerings. The contrast is stark. While soldiers face the harsh realities of war, the urban population continues with their daily lives, often oblivious to the sacrifices being made. It's a disconnect that is hard to bridge, a gap between the front lines and the home front. People push down their feelings, but they're still there. This disconnect is damaging. The anxiety and fear are palpable, even if they are not always expressed. People carry their emotions with them, a silent burden that weighs them down. The disconnect between the reality of the war and the facade of normalcy creates a sense of dissonance. It's a psychological strain, a tension that affects everyone. The emotions are there, just beneath the surface, waiting to be acknowledged. The longer they are suppressed, the the more damaging they become. It makes people not care or not believe what's true. The constant barrage of controlled information creates a sense of distrust. People become skeptical of what they see and hear. The newsstands are ignored, the headlines dismissed. The crowds move with a sense of indifference, a detachment from the reality of the situation. It's a dangerous trend, one that erodes the fabric of society. When people stop believing in the truth, when they become apathetic, it creates a fertile ground for misinformation and manipulation. The disconnect breeds cynicism and disillusionment. It makes them feel helpless. The sense of powerlessness is pervasive. People feel that they have no control over the situation, that their voices don't matter. The frustration and sadness are evident in their expressions. Protests may occur, but they are often met with resistance. The feeling of helplessness is a heavy burden, one that saps the spirit and diminishes hope. It's a feeling that is hard to shake, a sense of being trapped in a situation that is beyond one's control. The disconnect between the reality of the war and the daily life creates a sense of impotence. They stop trusting the news. The constant stream of controlled information leads to a breakdown in trust. People start to question everything they see and hear. The newspapers are left unread. The TV screens are turned off. The disconnect between the official narrative and the reality creates a sense of disillusionment. People feel that they are being lied to, that the truth is being hidden from them. It's a dangerous situation, one that undermines the very foundation of a functioning society. Trust is a fragile thing, and once it's broken, it's hard to rebuild. We don't know yet how much this will hurt people in the long run. The long-term effects of this disconnect are still unknown. The uncertainty is palpable, the future is unclear. People walk the streets with pensive expressions, their minds filled with questions and doubts. The disconnect between the reality of the war and the daily life creates a sense of unease. It's a situation that is fraught with potential consequences, both psychological and societal. The true cost of this disconnect may not be known for years to come, but it's a reality that cannot be ignored. The future is uncertain, and the path forward is unclear. People often have simple ideas about Russia. They think of vodka and serious faces. Those things might be partly true, but Russia is much more than that. Russians have been through a lot. They've learned to be strong through many hard times. They don't give up easily. You can see this strength now. Even with sanctions and being isolated, Russian culture is still alive. Books, music, ballet, theater, it all keeps going. These things give people comfort and hope. It's important to look past the simple ideas and see the real Russia. Russians aren't all the same, they have different ideas and dreams. To understand Russia, you have to listen to their stories. The Russian economy is at a turning point. The sanctions from other countries are hurting them, it's harder to get things, and prices are going up. But Russians are trying to stay strong. The government says things aren't so bad. They say the Russian money is doing better and that people still have jobs. They say Russia can handle the sanctions. But things are tough for regular people. It's hard to buy things because they cost so much more. It's getting harder to find basic things you need. Nobody knows what will happen to the economy. It's a mix of problems and possibilities. The government says things are okay, but many Russians are struggling. In Russia today, propaganda isn't just about changing minds, it's about control. The government has a tight grip on the flow of information, ensuring that only their narrative reaches the masses. This isn't a new tactic, but the extent and sophistication of the current propaganda machine are unprecedented. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, the state's message is omnipresent, seeping into every aspect of daily life. The government controls what people see and hear. Large outdoor screens broadcast state-approved news, and newspapers in parks carry the same messages. Crowds gather to watch public broadcasts, absorbing the information that the government wants them to believe. This control over media ensures that dissenting voices are drowned out, and the official narrative remains unchallenged. They tell the story they want to tell. Government officials give speeches that are broadcast widely, and outdoor billboards reinforce the same messages. Public notice boards are filled with government propaganda, ensuring that the state's version of events is the only one people see. This constant reinforcement of the official narrative creates a reality where alternative viewpoints are not just suppressed, but rendered invisible. Newspapers and TV that aren't controlled by the government have been shut down. Independent media outlets have been systematically dismantled, their offices closed and their journalists silenced. This has created a media landscape where only state-approved voices are heard, and any attempt to present an alternative perspective is met with swift and severe punishment. If you speak up against the government, they punish you. Protesters are detained by police, and people holding signs against the government are quickly taken away by authorities. This creates a climate of fear, where people are afraid to express dissenting opinions or challenge the official narrative. The threat of punishment is always present, ensuring that most people stay silent. Government TV says the war in Ukraine is good, that Russia had to do it. The state-controlled media presents the war as a necessary and justified action, framing it as a defensive measure to protect Russian interests. This narrative is repeated endlessly, creating a sense of inevitability and righteousness around the conflict. People are told that supporting the war is a patriotic duty, and any dissent is framed as unpatriotic or even treasonous. If you disagree, they say you're lying or working for other countries. Dissenters are labeled as traitors or foreign agents, accused of spreading lies and working against the interests of the state. This creates a hostile environment for anyone who dares to question the official narrative, as they are quickly marginalized and discredited. Public debates are stifled, and the space for open discussion is severely limited. Even the internet is controlled now. The government monitors online activity, blocking websites that present alternative viewpoints and tracking the digital footprints of its citizens. This extends the reach of the propaganda machine into the digital realm, ensuring that the state's message is the dominant one even online. People are aware that their online activities are being watched, which further discourages dissent. The government watches what people do online. Surveillance cameras are everywhere, and people using laptops in outdoor cafes are aware that they are being watched. This creates a sense of paranoia and self-censorship, as people are afraid to visit websites or engage in online discussions that might be deemed subversive. The constant surveillance ensures that the government's control extends into every aspect of people's lives. They block websites that say things they don't like. Access to information is tightly controlled, with websites that present alternative viewpoints being blocked. People struggle to find reliable information, as the government's censorship creates significant barriers to accessing independent news sources. This makes it difficult for people to form their own opinions or challenge the official narrative. It's getting harder to find real news. With independent media outlets shut down and the internet heavily censored, finding reliable information has become increasingly difficult. People are forced to rely on word of mouth and underground sources to get a sense of what is really happening. This creates a fragmented and uncertain information landscape where the truth is hard to discern. All this propaganda makes people afraid and suspicious. The constant barrage of state-controlled messages creates a climate of fear and suspicion. People are wary of each other, unsure of who they can trust. This erodes social cohesion and creates an environment where people are isolated and afraid to speak out. It's hard to know what's true. The conflicting messages and constant propaganda make it difficult for people to discern the truth. This creates a sense of confusion and disorientation as people struggle to make sense of the information they receive. The government's control over the narrative ensures that the truth is always obscured. People stop thinking for themselves. The relentless propaganda creates a passive and disengaged populace. People become accustomed to accepting the official narrative without question, losing the ability to think critically or independently. This makes it easier for the government to maintain control, as a disengaged populace is less likely to challenge the status quo. When propaganda is everywhere, it hurts people's minds and their sense of right and wrong. The pervasive nature of state-controlled messaging takes a toll on people's mental health and moral compass. The constant exposure to propaganda creates cognitive dissonance, as people struggle to reconcile the official narrative with their own experiences and beliefs. This erodes their sense of right and wrong, making it difficult to navigate the complexities of the world around them.